My fiancée left me the day after I lost my leg in an accident. She said, I didn't sign up for this. I worked through the pain, built a sports foundation for amputees and became a marathon champion. Then she sent me a friend request. I replied, you said you didn't sign up, so don't. Then she started apologizing. Chapter 1. I didn't sign up for this. I used to think my life was simple but solid: public school history teacher, assistant baseball coach, weeknight beers with the guys after practice. A modest little rental in Ohio with a leaky sink and a woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Her name was Lori. She liked to joke that she was upper-middle suburban and I was blue-collar sentimental, but she said it with a smile and kissed my cheek, so I let it slide. The night I proposed, we were on a pier at the lake, cheap ring, cold wind. She cried anyway. I don't care if we never have much, she said, I just want you. I believed her. 6 months later, on a cold February afternoon, a pickup blew a red light and folded my car in half. They tell me I screamed when they pulled me out. I don't remember that part. I remember the ceiling in the ER, the taste of metal in my mouth, and a doctor's voice saying words that still echo sometimes in the quiet. We did everything we could for your leg, Mr. Harris, but we had to amputate above the knee. I woke up in recovery with tubes in my arms and empty space under the blanket where my left leg used to be. I stared at the bump of bandages and felt like I'd been hollowed out. Lori came in an hour later. Her makeup was perfect, not a single streak, not even after the nurse put a box of tissues by her hand. She sat on the edge of the bed, picked up my hand, and stared at the bandaged stump. So, this is it, she whispered. This is it, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. She was quiet a long time, too long. Finally, she let out a sharp breath and said the sentence that burned the rest of my old life down. I didn't sign up for this. I actually thought I'd misheard. What? Her eyes filled, but there was no softness in them, only fear and something harder. I can't do this, Mark, she said. The wheelchairs, the money, the surgeries. My mom always told me, don't marry a problem you can't fix. I'm 27, I didn't sign up to be a nurse for the rest of my life. You're not my nurse, I said. You're my fiancée. She shook her head, already pulling her hand away. I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't. I can't. She slipped the engagement ring off, set it on the tray next to the untouched jello and stood. Someday you'll thank me for being honest, she said. Then she walked out. She never came back. The next morning, a volunteer came in and asked, do you have any family you want us to call? I looked down at the flat sheet where my leg should have been. No, I said. Not anymore. Chapter 2. Learning to stand again. The first few months after the accident, I lived in two places. The hospital and the dark. Physical therapy hurt. Phantom pain hurt worse. But nothing hurt like 3 a.m, when the nurse had already done her rounds and the TV was off, and all that was left was the sound of my own breathing in the empty chair where Lori used to sit. I stopped answering texts. Stopped replying to emails from school. Let my principal's voicemail sit unheard. It was easier to disappear. Until one day, my new physical therapist walked in with a file under his arm and a Marine Corps ring on his finger. Morning, Harris, he said. I'm Frank. I'm going to make your life miserable. I gave him the dead fish handshake I'd given every other therapist. Can't be much worse than it already is, I muttered. He snorted. Son, you have no idea how bad things can get. But here's the good news. You're not there yet, so get your butt up. We're going to learn how to stand. He didn't care when I snapped at him, didn't flinch when I cursed halfway through the first attempt to balance with the parallel bars. When I finally lost it, hands shaking, sweat dripping, stumps screaming. He just waited me out. You're allowed to be mad, he said calmly. You're not allowed to quit. You hear me? You don't get it, I said. My fiancée left the day after surgery. She said she didn't sign up for this. He leaned on the bar, face level with mine. Then good, he said. You just learned who didn't belong on the battlefield with you. I blinked. He tapped the metal bar. You're a teacher, right? You tell your kids Lincoln didn't quit. Washington didn't quit. The boys at Normandy didn't quit. Now it's your turn. Over the next months, he worked me like a drill sergeant and talked to me like a friend. He told me about other guys, vets who'd come back missing arms, legs, pieces of themselves, and still found a way to coach Little League, start businesses, dance with their wives. One afternoon, after a particularly rough session, he wheeled in a guy about my age with a running blade where his leg used to be. "Kyle," Frank said. "Meet Mark. This is the pain in my backside who just finished a 10K on one leg and now thinks he's invincible." Kyle laughed, swung his blade up on the table and said, "You ever run before?" "High school," I said. "Nothing serious." He grinned. "Good. You'll only have half as many bad habits." That was the first time a future I hadn't dared picture cracked the door open. Not teaching. Not coaching baseball running. Not away from something. Toward it. Chapter 3. Run with what's left. My first run was 2 laps around the hospital parking lot with Kyle jogging backwards in front of me and Frank yelling split times we both knew were terrible. It was clumsy. Ugly. My stump ached. My lungs burned. But when we finished, something small and stubborn inside me woke up. A year after the accident, I was out of the hospital, back in a tiny ground floor apartment, and walking with my prosthetic well enough to scare the mailman when I opened the door too fast. I didn't go back to full-time teaching. Not yet. Instead, I picked up some night classes at the community college. During the day, I haunted physical therapy, helping other patients with transfers, cheering them on at the parallel bars. One afternoon, a nurse said, "You know, they ought to pay you for this." I shrugged. "This is just what I know now." She tilted her head. "Then maybe what you know should be a program." That night, I sat at my kitchen table. Cheap laminate, 1 chair, and scribbled on a legal pad. At the top, I wrote, "Run with what's left." Below it, sports, training, and community for amputees who are tired of being told what they can't do. We started with 5 people on a high school track at sunset. Me, a 12-year-old boy who'd lost his leg to cancer. A middle-aged woman who'd just had a below-knee amputation from diabetes. A retired trucker with a prosthetic arm who just wanted to walk a mile without stopping. And Kyle, still smug, still faster than all of us. Frank showed up with a stopwatch and a cooler full of water bottles. Nobody moved fast that first night. But every lap, someone said, "I didn't think I'd ever do this again." That was enough. Over the next few years, the group grew. We registered as a nonprofit. Local news did a feel-good piece. A prosthetics company offered to help with equipment. We held a tiny 5K, and somehow a couple hundred people showed up. Half of them not amputees at all, just neighbors who wanted to run beside us. Then came Boston. A sponsor called and said, "We've got a charity bib for the Boston Marathon. We'd like you to run for the foundation." I laughed. "I'm a one-legged ex-teacher from Ohio." "You know that, right?" They said, "Exactly." Training was brutal. Early mornings on country roads. Hours on the treadmill when the snow piled too high outside. Adjusting the socket again and again when the skin on my stump protested. On race day, as I stood with other para-athletes at the starting line, I thought about Lori for the first time in a long time. You didn't sign up for this. She had no idea what she'd walked away from. Boston hurt every mile. But when I crossed that finish line on Boylston Street, metal pressed into my hand, announcer calling my name and the foundations, it felt less like a personal victory and more like a flag planted. We're here. We're not done. A local station interviewed me at the finish. They asked, "What would you say to someone who just had the worst day of their life?" I said, "You don't know it yet. But the worst day of your life isn't the last page. It's just the middle of the chapter." That clip made the evening news. Then the internet got hold of it. Within a week, our donation page crashed, my voicemail filled with messages from other amputees, and my quiet little life got louder than I ever expected. Which is exactly when the past knocked on my door. Not literally. Digitally. Chapter 4. You didn't sign up, so don't. It started with a notification on my phone while I was grading papers. "You have a new friend request." I almost ignored it, but habit won. I opened the app. There it was. "Lori Stanton sent you a friend request." For a moment the room shrank around me, same name, same eyes in the tiny profile picture, though there were a few more lines around them. A professional headshot now. Blazer. Law books behind her. Her bio said, family law attorney, Chicago. And her cover photo. A screenshot of me crossing the Boston finish line. News banner at the bottom. Local amputee teacher turns tragedy into victory. Her caption read, proud to know this fighter from way back. Life is wild. From way back. Interesting way to describe walking out of a hospital room. Her message came a second later. Lori. Mark. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I just watched your marathon story and the segment on your foundation. I'm crying as I type this. I am so sorry. I was young and selfish and terrified when you lost your leg. I didn't know how to handle it. Everyone in my life was telling me to get out while I could. What I said to you in that hospital haunts me. You didn't deserve that. I'm not asking you for anything. I just want you to know that I see who you became and I'm genuinely proud of you. If you ever wanted to talk, even once, I would be grateful for the chance to apologize in person. I read it 3 times. For a second, the old ache pressed against my ribs. Then something else rose higher. Not anger. Clarity. I remembered the blank quiet after she left. The nights where I stared at the ceiling, wondering if my life was over at 32. The first shaky lap around the track. The kids who now ran past me on carbon blades, laughing. The parents who'd pulled me aside after training and said, you gave my child back to me. All of that grew in the space she left. If she had stayed out of guilt, out of pity, out of pressure, would any of this exist? I opened a reply window. I didn't write a speech. Didn't pour out my pain. That wasn't who I was anymore. I typed, Lori, I read your message, I believe you when you say you were scared. The day after my surgery, you told me, I didn't sign up for this. I believed you then, I still believe you now, so I'm going to respect what you said. You didn't sign up for this life. The rehab, the hard days, the slow rebuild. You also didn't sign up for the men it made me, or the work I do now. So don't. Take care of yourself. Mark. I sat with it a moment, then I hit send. The friend request still sat at the top of the screen, waiting. I deleted it. The phone buzzed on the table almost immediately, then again, and again. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. For the first time since the accident, I felt like I wasn't reacting to my life. I was choosing it. Chapter 5 The Real Revenge. By the time I finally checked my phone that night, there were a dozen new messages. Lori. I understand, I really do. Lori. I know I hurt you. I've paid for it in my own way. Divorce last year. No kids. I've spent a long time thinking about what I did. Lori. You don't have to shut me out completely. I'm not trying to ride your success. I just want forgiveness. Lori. Are you really going to hold on to one sentence I said when I was terrified? There it was. The tilt. When the apology starts turning into a reproach. I put the phone down. The next day was our foundation's first big fundraising dinner. Nothing fancy. Hotel ballroom near the airport. Borrowed centerpieces. A slightly crooked banner with our logo. But for us, it was huge. We had kids in little ties and new dresses. Parents who'd remortgaged houses to pay medical bills. Now watching their children walk across the stage on prosthetics we'd helped fund. The city paper was covering it. A local station was live streaming for donors who couldn't attend. Backstage, straightening my tie, I remembered what Karen had told me that afternoon. One of the live stream registrations came from Chicago, she said. Name looked familiar. You want her blocked? I thought about it. No, I said finally. Let her watch. When they called my name, I walked onto the stage to a wave of applause that felt nothing like the polite clapping at school assemblies. These people weren't impressed with me. They were grateful we existed. I told them the story. Not with names. Not with bitterness. Just the simple truth. I woke up in a hospital room without a leg. The person I loved most in the world took one look and said, I didn't sign up for this, and left. I thought my life was over. I thought that was the last page. I glanced once at the camera. But it wasn't, I said. It was just the middle of the chapter. The rest of the pages, that's you all. That's these kids. That's every lap we run on that track together. I pointed to the front row where Miguel, our first scholarship kid, sat with his mom. That boy was told he'd never run again, I said. Next month, he's running his first 10K with a blade he got because this community showed up. People wiped their eyes. We don't get to choose every disaster that hits our lives, I said. But we do get to choose who we become afterward, and who we allow back in. I ended with the line that had followed me since Boston. The worst day of your life is not the last page, don't let anyone treat it like it is. Not doctors, not partners, not even you. When the dinner ended and the room emptied, I finally checked my phone again. One new message. Lori, I watched your speech. Hearing my words in your story, in front of all those people, that was hard. But you're right, I didn't sign up for your worst day. I'm glad someone else did. I won't contact you again. I just wanted to say one last time. I'm sorry. And I'm glad you proved me wrong, I read it once. Then I put the phone down without replying. Not out of anger. Just completion. I looked around my small living room. Boston medal on a hook, kids' thank you cards pinned to a corkboard, a stack of new grant applications for blades and wheelchairs and basketball chairs. This was the life that grew in the crater she left behind. And here's the truth. I wish somebody had told me in that hospital bed. The best revenge isn't making the person who left you miserable, it's building a life so full, so meaningful, so yours, that their absence doesn't feel like a wound anymore. It feels like the last bad decision they ever made about you. So when my phone buzzed again later, this time with a video from Miguel, breathless after a training run, yelling, "Coach, I did 5 miles, 5. I smiled. I had miles to go with these kids. The past. That could stay where it belonged. On an old page in a chapter I'd already finished reading, was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. If you are watching this video, comment below and tell us where you are watching this video from. Hit like if you crave justice and share this story with someone who needs its fire.